Welcome back, Truth Seeker. January 24th, 2019, a Thursday, running a few minutes late. My mom's having a rough time right now. She's going through that thing where people say things come in threes. I think I told you guys last week her TV caught on fire. Since then, she's had a little fender bender. Somebody bumped into her in a parking lot, and I guess her garage door just came off the track. So she's hoping that's the end. But my mom, I mean, she's just, I feel bad for her. She's just always got bad things happening to her. And then again, I think there really is something to that mind over matter thing, because my mom is just always expecting a disaster. And it seems like, problems are just always showing up in her life. So anyway, she's surviving. None of those things are catastrophic, but it is January 24th, 2019. Number of things happening in the world today. The Doomsday clock. We're going to talk about that. For 3 years in a row, it's at 2 minutes till midnight. And when they did that in 2017 for the first time, they said it was because of Donald Trump, the winner of the 58th U.S. presidential election. We'll talk more about that. We have a police officer who was killed in St. Louis in her apartment while off duty by an on-duty officer who was at her apartment for unknown reasons, saying he mishandled his gun in her apartment and she's dead. So we'll get to that. There was a vote for the government shutdown to end today. It failed, meaning it's going longer. Michael Cohen's been subpoenaed to testify before the Senate, of course, by the numbers. Another Seattle-related story. Again, been a big theme here early in 2019. A whole lot of Seattle-related news. Amanda Knox, you probably remember this story. She's from Seattle, back in the news today. We'll talk about that. Speaking of Seattle, they're saying Howard Schultz, the face of Starbucks, the company out of Seattle, he could be running for president. Seattle, Seattle, Seattle. Story I haven't seen anything about since 2017, and a story I covered in my book. It's back in the headlines today. The white supremacist James Harrison Jackson, who traveled from New York to Baltimore because he wanted to kill a black man. Get to that. Last night, Trump, he recognized the opposition to the president as the president of Venezuela, creating a little political skirmish. Of course, it's all news by the numbers, evidence of the New World Order. I don't have any gematria for this story, but I just want to talk about how ridiculous this is. Climate change, this comes from the scientific community. Climate change will affect the ratio of male to female newborns. It's published last night. And today, the day that has the deadly gematria, we have the death of an umpire, Major League Baseball umpire, dead at 73, been umpiring. Well, he began his umpiring with MLB in 73, now dead at 73. And his surname has this gematria of 115, like the 115th World Series is upcoming. So we'll talk about that. Death of a famous fashion designer in Madrid. Stephen A. Smith saying Tiger Woods will never win another major. We'll talk about what's so interesting about that. Tony Soprano's 19-year-old son is going to play a young Tony Soprano in a movie that HBO's producing about the Sopranos. 19, the number in 2019. And then just in case you missed what I put out last night, they updated the story of the bank shooting in Sebring, Florida. They gave us the shooter's name, Zephin Xavier. Just in case you missed what I put out on that last night, we'll recoup and how it was connected to the other top story yesterday, the sexual assault at the Hacienda Healthcare Clinic in Arizona. Just a reminder about this whole news by the numbers thing. So let's start with this day in history. January 24th, 2013. It was on this day in history that the lift or the ban was lifted on women serving in combat in the United States. And what stands out to me about this story is the date, January 24th, can be written 24/1, like 241. That's the 53rd prime number. Vesica Pisces sums to 53. The shape from sacred geometry, two overlapping circles. That shape in sacred geometry is considered to be the womb of the universe. It's associated with the feminine. Vesica Pisces 53, womb 53. You know, this military band had everything to do with the feminine. So I don't think it was any accident they did it on that date. Earlier in history, in 1848, James W. Marshall discovered a gold nugget at Sutter's Mill in Northern California, which eventually triggered the 1949 gold rush. And what's interesting about that name, James W. Marshall, is it sums to 223. Number we talk about often. That's the 48th prime. This happened in 1848. And the coordinates of where this occurred was on the 38th parallel. Perfect. Gold equals 38. Remember, in recent years, the San Francisco 49ers, named after the gold rush, hosted the golden anniversary of the Super Bowl, which was on the 38th day of the year, February 7th. And that Super Bowl was won by the team from the 38th state, Colorado, where Colorado equals 38. Sutter's Mill, where the nugget was discovered. It's interesting that just the word Sutter's has the Gematria 49 in light of it triggering the 49 gold rush. In 1965, on this date, Winston Churchill died at age 90, and he died on a date with 90 numerology. And of course, 90 is one of two numbers when written out as a word that sums to 33. 90's 33, secrecy's 33, masonry's 33. I missed a big one on here, which is supposed to be on here. Winston in that same cipher sums to 33. Winston always reminds me of the main character from 1984. But Winston, 33, like 90. And when you flip the alphabetic order around, England's also 33. And as for dying in 65, United Kingdom, 65. Winston Churchill, the face of the war, especially for the United Kingdom. He died 55 days after his birthday. The word sacrifice does have that gematria 55 as well. In 1975, on this date, the extremist group that went by the acronym FALN bombed the Francis Tavern in New York City, killing 4 people. 4, that number associated with death. This is the tavern where they said George Washington used it as his headquarters throughout the Revolutionary War. But things that jump out about the date. It was a date with 119 numerology, 119. What do we know about that number? Shows up a lot, especially in tragedy. The all-seeing eye number. And it was also a date with 47 numerology. Francis Tavern equals 211. That's the 47th prime number. So a fitting date for an attack on the location. Francis Tavern also sums to 167, which is the 39th prime number. And as we know, that's the big number in New York. Established on a date with 39 numerology, New York's 39, NY's 39, and a whole lot more. New York and 39, peas in a pod. The word Francis alone also has gematria of 33, as does FALN, as does New York. I don't know about you, but when I see 33 and 119, it just makes me think of an even more infamous date, September 11, 2001. 33, 119, these numbers are important to Masonry. The all-seeing eye, an important concept to Masonry. In 1984, Apple Computer began selling its first Macintosh model. I was trying to think about exactly why they did it on this date. I noticed that technology, just using the alphabetic order, sums to 124, like 1/24 was the latest technology. But whenever I think of Apple, the most important thing that I can think about to teach people in light of gematria is that using the Sumerian ciphers, computer and internet are 666, and the first Apple computer was priced at $666. So No doubt this was the reason why. Also on this date in 1985, the Space Shuttle Discovery was launched from Cape Canaveral on the first secret all-military shuttle mission. And this date had a life lesson number of 48. The name of the ship, Discovery's 48. Cape Canaveral's also 48. Remember, when you flip the alphabetic order around, Freemason sums to 48. Freemason's 48 in Hebrew and English. Freemasonry, with its control over NASA. In 1989, on this date, confessed serial killer Ted Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair. And the date he was killed was a date with 114 numerology, electric chair, 114. Perfect. He died on his 62nd day of his age, sacrificed 62. In 1993, on this date, just 4 days after Bill Clinton became the 42nd president, Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall died in Bethesda, Maryland, at age 84. And a number of things jump out about his death. It was a date with 118 numerology. Death is 118. It's also a date with 137 numerology. Big number in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is 137, so is government, White House, authority. Again, that statue of Albert Pike, the Freemason, holding the text Morals and Dogma. Morals and Dogma equals 137. In that text, it says Freemasonry owes all thanks to Kabbalah. Kabbalah in Hebrew sums to 137, the 33rd prime. From his last birthday to his death was 206 days later. In Jewish Gematria, sacrifice is 206. Thurgood Marshall, his name, 87. Justice has that Gematria of 87. Remember Antonin Scalia found with a pillow over his head? Antonin equals 87, so does pillow. And he died on the 24th. Justice is also 24 in the most pure cipher. And if you use the rule for S, which is plus 9 more, justice is 33. Again, 137, the numerology of his date of death, 137, the 33rd prime. As for dying at 84, Marshall equals 84. Think about the Jesuit influence over the Supreme Court. Jesuit is 84. Masonry is 84. United States of America, 84. He died right after Bill Clinton took office. And speaking of the Jesuits, again, we just saw Brett Kavanaugh, his whole confirmation thing with Christine Blasey Ford. That was on the Jesuit order's birthday. But from Clinton's last birthday to the day that Thurgood Marshall died was 158 days later. And why does that matter? Because the Jesuit date of formation is August 15th, 15/8. And again, Washington, D.C. used to be the Catholic colony, now has the headquarters of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. There's a lot of overlap with the Jesuits and the Scottish Rite, including sharing mottos. Freemasonry, 158. So, I would say no doubt that was a ritual sacrifice and tribute to the new man taking the White House, Bill Clinton. 93 was also the year Ruth Bader Ginsburg would be confirmed as the Supreme Court Justice. She was confirmed on August 10th, 10/8. And just for the record, the name Thurgood has this Gematria of 108. 10/8, August 10th. So, fast forward to today, the Doomsday Clock says it's almost the end of the world as we know it. 3 years in a row now they've said this because it's been kept at the same time. 2 minutes to midnight. The minute hand on the 58. And just read a little bit of this. If you have anything left on your bucket list, do it now because the world is close to annihilation. That's according to the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, which gave its annual presentation of the Doomsday Clock on Thursday. A group of scientists and scholars, including 15 Nobel laureates, set the clock at 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes before the symbolic apocalyptic midnight. The midnight hand didn't move since last year, but 11:58 p.m. is the closest the clock has ever been to symbolizing doom. The fact that the Doomsday clock's hand did not change is bad news, said Robert Rossner, chair of the Bulletin's Science and Security Board. So keep in mind, today has 44 date numerology. Clock equals 44. The term Doomsday clock equals 211, which is the 47th prime number, times 47. And the Doomsday clock has been in operation since 1947. That was the year it began. Not by accident. Doomsday clock 211, the 47th prime. We know who likes numbers. So last year it was at 2 minutes to midnight, and in 2017 it was technically at 2.5 minutes to midnight. I want to go back and show you the reporting from 2017. Whoops, that's the wrong link. Where is it at? Okay, first of all, before we go back to 2017, let's just do this first. So, where's that paragraph at? In this same article from today, it says, so why are we so close to destruction? Nuclear weapons and climate change, experts say. In the nuclear realm, the United States abandoned the Iran nuclear deal and announced it would withdraw from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, grave steps towards a complete dismantlement of the global arms control process, the bulletin said. So it's at 2 minutes to midnight, 11:58. Nuclear weapon equals 58. Freemasonry, 58. Rosicrucian, 58. Secret Society, 58. 258. And in 2017, when they sent it right at this tick, they said it was because of Trump, who won the 58th U.S. presidential election. Again, the man who announced from the 58-story Trump Tower. And I'll remind that this year we're watching the date August 11th, 2019, a date that's 58 days after Trump's birthday, and also a date with 58 numerology. Again, we're watching that date because it's Tisha B'Av. But here was the pulse from 2017. For the record, Doomsday's 33. You know, what else? But here it was. This is the article from 2017, right after Trump took the White House. Scientists moved the hands of the Doomsday clock closer to midnight on Thursday amid increasing worries over nuclear weapons and climate change. Each year, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, a nonprofit that sets the clock, decides whether the events of the previous year pushed humanity closer or further from destruction. The symbolic clock is now 2.5 minutes from midnight. The closest it's been to midnight since 1953, when the hydrogen bomb was first tested. Scientists blamed a cocktail of threats ranging from dangerous political rhetoric to the potential of nuclear threat as the catalyst for moving the clock closer towards doomsday. This year's clock deliberations felt more urgent than usual as trusted sources of information came under attack. Fake news was on the rise, and words were used by a president-elect, that's Trump, of the United States in cavalier and often reckless ways to address the twin threats of nuclear weapons and climate change. Rachel Bronson, the executive director and publisher of Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, said in a statement, while many threats played into the decision to move the clock 30 seconds forward from where it was in 2016, one person in particular prompted the scientists to act. Never before has the Bulletin decided to advance the clock largely because of the statements of a single person. But when that person is the new president of the United States, his words matter, David Titley and Lawrence M. Krauss of the Bulletin wrote. The Bulletin pointed to President Donald Trump's careless rhetoric on nuclear weapons and other issues, as well as his troubling stance on climate change. Just want to throw in here, does anybody remember South Park's episode about Donald Trump and him carrying around the nuclear football? Current political situation in the U.S. is of particular concern, Titley of the Bulletin Science and Security Board said. The Trump administration needs to state clearly, unequivocally, it accepts climate change caused by human activity. There are no alternative facts here. Last year, the clock remained at 3 minutes from midnight. It was moved to 3 minutes in 2015, where it was previously at 5 minutes to midnight. Manhattan Project scientists concerned about the first atomic weapons founded the nonprofit Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists in 1945. It's interesting how Trump's number 45, and now 3 years in a row, it's at this specific mark that's in connection to him. They created the clock 2 years later and update its minute hand each year. So again, the clock's been in operation since 47, and we know why. There it is. Doomsday clock since 47. Don't forget that the word nuclear, weapon, and energy, just using the alphabetic order, are all 74, also the reflection of 47. And nuclear war and Thursday, because they always do this on a Thursday. Gematria of 160. And let me just see, let me look at what else there is for Thursday. Thursday. You use the rule for S here. The rule for S makes this 44. Because S can be plus 9 more. Can we talk about how clock's 44? Today's got that 44 date numerology. So, understanding Gematria gives you real clarity on this subject. 2 minutes to midnight. 2's also got the Gematria 58. And again, a lot of this code goes back to time. Again, the tropics of this Earth, which measure time, are 47 degrees apart. All right, so another bizarre story today. Today's our killing date. Today's the date celebrities should be on alert for, and seemingly police officers. Seems like there's a suspicious police officer deaths on these types of dates as well. So early this morning, just after midnight, the story is 2 on-duty police officers were attending or visiting the apartment of an off-duty female officer, and they don't understand why the officers were there, and they don't exactly know what happened, but a statement's been issued that one of the on-duty officers mishandled his weapon and killed this woman, who happens to be 24 years old. Dead on the 24th. In Missouri, the 24th state. But notice, today's date has the 44 and 64 numerology. With the alphabetic order, kill's 44. With the reverse alphabetic order, kill is 64. And, of course, shooting and gunfire have the Gematria 44. Officer has the Gematria 44. We're talking about an officer being killed. Law enforcement has the Gematria of 64. The woman is Caitlin Alex, 24 years old, dead on the 24th, again in Missouri, the 24th state. Here's the reporting. A St. Louis police officer was shot and killed early Thursday morning, according to the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. Caitlin Alex, 24, was off duty when she was accidentally shot by an on-duty officer at an apartment. SLMPD spokeswoman Officer Michelle Woodling told CNN. Another on-duty officer was also at the scene. The 2 on-duty officers, both described only as 29-year-old white men, 29 plus 29 is 58, met Alex at the apartment. Police have not said who lived at the residence. While they were sitting in the living room, one of the officers mishandled a firearm and shot Alex in the chest, Woodling said in an email. So her name, Caitlin, has this Gematria of 83 and 79. Murder sums to 79 and 83. And don't forget the song Murder by Numbers was recorded by the band The Police. So often we read about these suspicious deaths and it's the police telling us that there's nothing suspicious or it was just an accident. Murder by Numbers, The Police. The song came out in 83. I wonder if Caitlin had ever heard it before. She would have been born in 94 or 95. The name Alex, her surname, has this Gematria of 46 and 62. Sacrifice also has that Gematria of 46 and 62. St. Louis, Missouri has that Gematria 67, like blood sacrifice. And we'll see what other details come out, but this looks like a murder by numbers. And really does make you wonder exactly what is going on. I mean, why, oh, why does this happen again and again? Stories like this that don't make any sense. So today the government voted to end the shutdown. Well, they had a vote to end it, but the vote failed. It didn't pass. And we were talking about what was interesting today. Today's the 34th day of the shutdown, and it's January 24th, a date that can be written 1/24. I had a feeling it was going to go longer. But I think we got this symbolic vote to end the shutdown on this date for this reason, even though it failed. So I think they got to go longer for the wall ritual. And I'm still banking on February 7th. We'll see. Also today, Michael Cohen subpoenaed by the Senate Intelligence Committee. They didn't put out the date that he has to appear, but it says the middle of February. Remember, he was going to testify on February 7th, but then he said he's under threat from Donald Trump and Donald Trump's attorney, and he fears for his family, so he's not going to do it. And now the Senate stepped in and said, oh, yeah, you are. You're under subpoena. And today's date has 64 numerology, and notice Senate is 64. We talked about how today has 44 date numerology. From his sentencing, Michael Cohen, December 12th to today is his 44th day since the sentencing, a span of 44 days. You could also say it's 43 days after, or the 44th day, including December 12th. So pretty sure that's why we're hearing about Michael Cohen being subpoenaed by the Senate today. Amanda Knox, she was the talk of the town in Seattle when this was going on. She was probably the talk of the town all over the place. Big story, but she was from Seattle. And I remember it seemed like around the time, everywhere I went, everybody like, oh, yeah, I knew Amanda Knox. It was like the whole city of Seattle knew her. I was like, really? You know her too? Everybody seems to know Amanda Knox. I don't know her. Everybody wanted to claim they knew Amanda Knox. I didn't know Gematria back then, but what jumps out about the name Knox in a big way is in the most pure cipher, sums to 19, just like Seattle. And here we are in 2019, and it seems like almost daily we're getting some story that's connected to Seattle. And I'm sure most people wouldn't make these observations, but being from here, it's really standing out. You know, Jeff Bezos, the Nordstrom CEO, everything else we've covered this year. So notice Knox with the alphabetic order 64, with the reverse alphabetic order 44. You know, Seattle's also 44. And again, today's date has this 64 and 44 numerology, and this is when we're hearing about it. European court orders Italy to pay damages to Amanda Knox. And Italy with the alphabetic order is 67, which is the 19th prime number. Italy 67, the 19th prime. Again, I think this is going to be the combo all year, 67, 19. So Italy has a little thing going with Seattle. And again, makes sense to hear about her on this date. It has been ordered to pay, Italy has been ordered to pay compensation to Amanda Knox, an American former student who spent years under the cloud of a murder she didn't commit. So remember, this story also has to do with killing. Kill is 44 and 64. Europe's top human rights court ruled Thursday that Knox's rights were violated in the hours after she was arrested in the Italian city Perugia over the killing of the British housemate Meredith Kircher in 2007. I should go back and investigate this story more deeply. There might be a lot of gems here. The European Court of Human Rights said Italy should pay Knox 18,400 euros, about 20,800 US, for failing to provide her with a lawyer and an appropriate interpreter when she was first detained. But it found there was no evidence for her claim that she was mistreated while in police custody. Knox's case and subsequent appeals attracted global attention for years. as it seesawed through the Italian legal system. Knox was finally cleared of murder in 2015, but she has been fighting a 3-year sentence for blaming someone for the murder who was later found to have an alibi. Her birthday, July 9th. I believe that's O.J. Simpson's birthday, too. Let me just check. I'm pretty sure it is. O.J. Simpson, July 9th. And, think about the parallel between her and O.J. Simpson. Both cleared of murder. Murder with the alphabetic order equals 79. That date can also be written 9/7. Death, 97. I'm noticing something just looking at this with my own eyes right now. Her birth numerology is 122, and Seattle's on the 122nd meridian, like San Francisco. I'm going to have to do a deeper decode on this. I'm sure there's a lot of gems here. What else would it be? It was an international story. And even to this day, still reporting on it by the numbers. So no doubt it's been news by the numbers since the beginning. Yesterday, this headline emerged: why Starbucks Howard Schultz has a shot at the White House. And right away, Starbucks equals 114, President of the United States 114, Seattle 19, POTUS 19, POTUS, the acronym for President of the United States. The Washington Post recently reported that Howard Schultz, the former CEO and chairman of Starbucks, is seriously mulling a presidential run as a third-party candidate. So, anyway, I noticed that his birthday is even on the 19th. How fitting. From his birthday to this news story was 188 days later. That's the big Bavarian Illuminati number. And again, your US dollar bills with Illuminati symbolism all over them. You had the 1, the 2, the 5, the 10, the 20, the 50, the 100. The dollar bill denominations, it sums to 188. And Starbucks is big business. So Starbucks is big money. But I don't think it's any coincidence this story coming out in 2019, or any coincidence about the day the news story released. Remember the Starbucks bombing in Jakarta on January 14th, once upon a time, 114? Starbucks got bombed. That wasn't an accident. All right. Today, white supremacist James Harrison Jackson pleads guilty to killing a black man. And we covered this story in 2017. This news broke on March 22nd, 22/3/223. White supremacist equals 223. James Harrison Jackson 223. Couldn't have been any more perfect news by the numbers. There it was. Suspect in Manhattan killing hated black men, police say. Oh, so that's what it was. He traveled from Baltimore to New York. I had that backwards earlier when I said that. Which at the time I was saying, that doesn't make any sense, because if you wanted to kill a black man, why would you travel from Baltimore? Baltimore is one of the blackest cities in the nation. So, anyway. From the news story of March 22nd, 2017 to this latest news, January 24th, is 673 days later. 673 days. That's the 122nd prime number, and supremacy equals 122. A white supremacist. The man he killed was 66 years old. 66 is the 11th triangular number. The word black equals 11. You add 1 through 11 together, it's 66. He killed a 66-year-old black man. And the name James Harrison Jackson, when you flip the alphabetic order around, is 317. That's the 66th prime number. It's a story of killing. This headline comes today. On the date was 64 and 44 numerology. Kill 64 and 44. The white supremacist is scheduled to be sentenced on February 13th, 2/13. Remember, Black History Month equals 213. And in Jewish gematria, racism equals 213. Pull that up here. Again, if you come to Derek's calculator and go to Jewish and type in racism, it's 213. Tupac Shakur, once upon a time, released his last studio album while alive, All Eyes on Me, on February 13th. He died 213 days later on September 13th in a drive-by shooting. Was the cause of death. Drive-by shooting, 213. His mother was a Black Panther, Tupac. Black Panthers, 213. And just for in case you're new here, Tupac Shakur equals 139, like Freemasonry. He died on 13/9, September 13th. Tupac's death very much by the numbers. I always think of it anytime I hear about the date, February 13th. February is Black History Month. Black History Month's 213. And I should also note that in Satanic Gematria, death is 213. He's going to be sentenced reportedly on that date for the killing of another man. Part of me wonders if any of this story is real or if it's, just all contrived just to remind us about hate and division and killing and murder and, racism. February 13th, 19 will also be a date with 34 numerology. Murder's 34. The name of the victim, by the way, Timothy Kaufman. This is the 66-year-old who was killed. Gematria 74, killing 74, stabbing 74, Masonic 74. Think about the KKK, how they burn crosses, cross 74. But white supremacist is also 74. So white supremacist travels from one of the most black cities in the entire nation to New York because he wants to kill a black man, which again makes no sense. And then he kills the guy with the most perfect name. So again, news stories, they're just nonsensical on the surface. And then you apply the gematria and you go, okay, wait a minute. I mean, how can all this be so perfect every single day? And again, we know what 223 is really about. The synagogue of Satan, 223. The synagogue of Satan. And if you guys notice this trend in media, people who speak against Zionism are labeled as white supremacists. It's like, wait a minute. Speaking against Zionism doesn't make you a white supremacist, but that is a definite trend in media. I'm sure if there was a news story written about me, I'd be referred to as a white supremacist. And if anybody looked into that, they would find that that is absolutely not the case. So yesterday, after we did the podcast, a story emerged in the evening time. Trump recognizes Venezuelan opposition leader as president. And then following that, Venezuela's president Maduro breaks relations with U.S. So this story came 223 days after Trump's birthday. Again, 223 is the 48th prime, Donald Trump 48. It was also Trump's 224th day of his age. And that matters because the president that he disrespected, his full name is Nicolas Maduro Moros, which equals 224. So what a day to, disrespect. Couldn't have been any more perfect. Don't forget the divisors of 84 sum to 224, meaning if you take all the numbers that divide into 84 and add them together, they sum to 224, United States of America, 84. If you read my book on wars by the numbers, these numbers have a lot to do with the Revolutionary War. Don't forget Masonry and Zionism and Jesuit, they're all 84 as well. So there was even more here. This story came on Maduro's 62nd day of his age. Notice he was born in 62. Mason equals 62. Masonry all across the world. And the man that Trump recognized as the president, even though he's not, from his birthday to this incident was 179 days later, which is the 41st prime. USA's 41. And then CNN followed up their story with this update. U.S. official calls Maduro's order meaningless. And Maduro's order was saying, he's dropping all relations with the U.S. But notice meaningless, 179 days after the opposition leader's birthday, the 41st prime number. I mean, how could it be a coincidence? So the guy that Trump recognized as the leader, look at his name, 88 like Trump too. Just adding insult to injury. She looks like she's having a good time with it. Good to be the boss. And okay, I didn't do any gematria on this story. I just looked at this and I said, come on. This emerged last night too. Climate change will affect the ratio of male to female newborns, scientists say. And okay, so climate change is affecting the weather, temperature, rainfall, snow. So I read this article and it didn't have any information about, in warm climates, more boys are born or more girls are born or something like that, or in rainier climates, more boys are born or more girls are born, et cetera, et cetera. There wasn't any information like this. So I've never heard in my life that in certain types of weather, more of girls or boys are born than other. So how could weather, changing all of a sudden impact the ratio of male to female births? It just doesn't make any sense on the surface. And what we see in this world? We see bunk science being used to create excuses for scientific cover-ups. It's obvious that something's going on in the world with children and infants and the emergence of things like SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, all of the new allergies, autism, all of these disorders that children are suffering from at growing rates year after year. It's obvious that something's wrong. The weather, I mean, I don't doubt that having a toxic planet is impacting, the health of babies. Maybe even, gender. But to blame it on the weather component is just nonsense. It just doesn't even make sense. There's no rational or logical argument for it. But at the same time, when the same scientific authorities put out these types of studies, they're the same scientific authorities that say, oh, no, it couldn't possibly be vaccines. Oh, no, it couldn't possibly be the GMOs in the food. And it's like, okay, so it can't be the chemicals that are in our food or being injected into our bodies from a young age. It couldn't be those things. There's just no way it could possibly be that, even though those are the only things that are really changing in the era that we see all of these problems emerging. Oh, no, it's the climate change. So, this is why so many people in the world completely reject science and hate science. And I don't think that's the right attitude either. Science is a real thing. I mean, there's legitimate science. But the problem is, through the mainstream, we're just given all of these scientific lies and excuses and misdirection and ever-changing misinformation that's meant to cause confusion and, keeping you on the teeter-totter of life. And that's not really science's fault. That's the fault of the people who are in charge of the show. So this story just made me say, what will they think of next? Climate change. Also today, I'm expecting some more deaths to emerge in the headlines either later today or possibly we hear about them tomorrow or the day after. Sometimes it takes a day or two to hear about a death that happened prior. But I'm expecting that we're going to see some celebrity deaths. I'm expecting that we'll see a dead football player. I mean, I wish I wasn't expecting these things, but just realizing how these patterns unfold, month after month, year after year. Again, today's date, January 24th. Can be written 24/1, like 241. That's the 53rd prime number. Super Bowl 53 is upcoming. Last month, on the date with 44 and 64 numerology, like how today has 44 and 64 numerology, we saw the death of a former Atlanta Falcon who not only died on the date with 44 numerology, he died 44 days after his birthday. And of course, the Atlanta Falcons are hosting the Super Bowl on a date with 44 numerology. George is 44. So I imagine that we will see some updated deaths, probably of former football players on this day. One, maybe more than one. There is already one death related to the world of sports today, and it's a former baseball umpire. He's dead at age 73, and he began umpiring in Major League Baseball in the year 73. And his surname, McKean, equals 115, like how this upcoming baseball season, which is about to get underway, will conclude with the 115th World Series. Let me take this call just in case they want to add something to the show here. Hi, caller, are you calling in for the live stream? Caller.
Yeah.
You're on. Be sure to mute your video in the background.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I was just calling to ask about. So you talked about the rituals with the Super Bowl and how those relate to Super Bowl 53. Are those rituals actually something that happen every single Super Bowl and every single year, or is that like?
Oh yeah, every year. Every year. Caller?
Okay. So with those rituals, they happen every single year around Super Bowl time, or is it just at the Super Bowl, or is it all sports championships?
You got to turn off your video in the background, man. I'm going to hang up. You can call back. You got to do this right in the future. He's trying to wait for my response by listening through the video. He's not getting that it's on a time delay. All right. But yeah, this stuff goes on every single year, every single sports season. It happens in all the sports. And it's sick. You know, it's just like we saw the numerous deaths the day the Chargers won their playoff game. The player lost the baby. The former Charger died. Let me go out to California here. Hello?
Hi. Zach?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I think I got your sports stats figured out. The most important person who called the show last night was the woman who called at the end of the show. And she was trying to figure out how the Rams connected to the trade embargo and how they connected to the War of 1812.
Okay.
So what I think where we're at is if you look up where Dodge Ram trucks are made, and if you look that up, you'll find out that they are currently made in Mexico, and that they're moving from Mexico. They're going to be moving to Warren, Michigan. And that's where Tom Brady's from, Michigan, right? That's where he played college.
Sure, right.
Warren equals 235. Then, if you go back down the page a little, like from the Google search of where are Dodge trucks made, you just scroll down a little bit, you find the next article or two down, and it's from the 10th of it's from October 29th of 18. And it's about Dodge trucks, and they have a new series coming out called DT Generation. D like dog, T like Thomas, right? Like defensive tackle.
Well, here's what I'm going to say right away. Dodge equals 26, which is a big number on the Super Bowl. The Rams can get their 26th playoff loss. Dodge will definitely be advertising during the Super Bowl, and it was a few years ago. It was when the Lions and the Cowboys were playing in the playoffs in Dallas. There was a popular Dodge trucks commercial where they they would show the Star of David, and then they'd replace the Star of David with the Dodge emblem in that commercial. Some people might recall that commercial. And I remember during watching that playoff game, the Cowboys and the Lions were beating the Cowboys in Dallas. But when they came back, the Fox television crew, they showed the sun setting in Texas, and they used this graphic to change the sun in the sky so that it looked like the Star of David. They used some sort of graphic so that the sun clearly looked like the Star of David in the sky right after the Dodge commercial just ended showing the Star of David. And there used to be a video on that on my old channel. But it also reminds me how the Rams Monday Night Football to start this season, how they had the woman on the Rams sideline who had the Star of David tattooed on her wrist, and she was holding it up for the cameras. So, okay, you're getting into a defensive tackle thing. All right, what's up?
So Warren, Michigan equals 235. And that's this number we've been seeing, this 523, connected to Aaron Donald's birthday and 99, and we're in the 99 season. He wears number 99. I'm pretty sure, I'm kind of in agreement with the people who called you last night and said they think Tom Brady's going to get hurt in the Super Bowl. And I think Aaron Donald's going to do it.
That'd be the perfect guy.
The Super Bowl MVP. DT, like defensive tackle, in reverse gematria, both forms, is a match to MVP. MVP equals 51 and 15, like Rams.
Okay.
Right? Aaron Donald currently has 20 and we can get some of the other guys out to check this stat and make sure I'm correct, but I've checked everywhere. I'm pretty sure.
You broke up. He has 20 and a half what, sacks?
20 and a half sacks on the season.
Oh, okay.
Got none in the playoffs so far. Not if, but when he has 3 sacks in the Super Bowl, he will have 23.5 sacks for the season.
Okay, that's interesting.
Career-ending knee injury equals 335 and 118 in the base score. I only really mess around with the base score. And what I was thinking from the beginning, remember with the whole Joe Theismann, Alex Smith thing this year, when J.J. Watt, number 99, injured Alex Smith.
Right.
They talked to J.J. Watt, they talked to Alex Smith, they talked to Theismann, but I felt like Lawrence Taylor slipped under the radar on the whole thing, right? And it made me start to wonder if Lawrence Taylor is going to be the ritual sacrifice. Lawrence Taylor went to school at Lafayette in Williamsburg, Virginia. Williamsburg, Virginia equals 235.
Okay.
And you did a thing. You saw the movie Evan Can Wait. You know about that movie?
Evington Wait?
Yeah, it's a movie about the Los Angeles Rams. It's got Warren Beatty in it, and about the Los Angeles Rams winning the Super Bowl.
I haven't seen it.
The quarterback's number is 16, and his last name is Jarrett. But when they're showing the movie and they're listening to the radio broadcast, it keeps sounding like they keep saying Jarrett.
Huh, I see, like Jared Goff. Interesting.
Jared Goff. So when I think of Warren, Michigan, and Warren in the NFL, I only think of 2 really names, Warren Sapp and Warren Moon. And we just had this Moon thing go by. And so I'm looking out for Warren Sapp or Lawrence Taylor to be the ritual sacrifice for this Super Bowl or in the next few days, after the Super Bowl.
Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. That's interesting.
So if he gets those 3 sacks in the Super Bowl, 3 sacks equals 37. So I think that's what they're telling us. I think they're telling us through this riddle with Dodge moving to Michigan that Aaron Donald and the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sold on this. That it's too obvious. Like the whole idea that the Patriots getting there and Tom Brady finishing his career the way it ended. It just seems too obvious. Kind of like last year when we thought they would beat the Eagles, it just seemed too obvious, and we got surprised. And I think that's where it's heading this year as well.
All right. Well, if you think it's the Rams and you're right, I'll remember your call. I'll be surprised if the Rams win. So.
All right, man. You have a good one. Thank you very much for everything you do.
All right. Take care. All right. The call I am waiting for today is a New York caller from last night, but a few more slides to get through here. So anyhow, we have this death of this umpire today. 73 years old. He's been he started umpiring in the MLB at 73. And again, this upcoming season will conclude with the 115th World Series. And his name's McKean, 115. They called him Jim McKean. Jim McKean's 79, like murder. And his first World Series that he ever umpired was in 79. That stood out. With regards to him dying at 73, again, sacrifice and ritual sacrifice are 73. From 73 to 2019 is 46 years later. Sacrifice 46. And his name, James McKean, also has that 67 connection. 67, the 19th prime. Dead just before the start of the 2019 baseball season. And again, dead on this date with 64 and 44 numerology. So I'll have to think more about that. The teams that were in the World Series that he umpired. But don't think it's any accident that he passed today. Another death in the world today, 89-year-old fashion designer from Spain. In light of him being 89, 89 is the 24th prime number. He's dead 27 days from his birthday. And his name, Gematria, has some standout numbers. His first name's even got that 67 thing going. But see what else emerges today in the news. Stephen A. Smith this morning predicted that Tiger Woods will never win another major. And notice ESPN emphasized not winning another major. Not winning another major sums to 277, which is the 59th prime number. Tiger, Negro, Slave, Rasta, Blues, they're all 59. And realize this is just using the alphabetic order. This is our most straightforward, simple cipher. When you flip the alphabetic order around, Woods is also 59. So, think that's an accident? I definitely do not. This news comes on the date with 44 and 64 numerology. Remember, in the centenary cipher, African Americans 44. And our most pure cipher, civil rights, is 64. The big Obama numbers. So, Stephen A. Smith. If you have not read my book, you really got to. And I would love for you to scan to the section on the death of James Gandolfini. His death had everything to do with Pope Francis. And there's a lot to it. It's in the book. But what are the odds that in 2019, we hear about his 19-year-old son getting a gig with HBO? They're going to make a movie about The Sopranos, and the son's going to play a young Tony Soprano. This news came yesterday, the date with the life lesson number of 36, Sopranos 36. So I should have The Sopranos equals 51. James Gandolfini, by the way, was 51 years old when he died. But there's a whole lot to his death. Definitely a murder by numbers. And, I guess all these years later, his son gets the benefit. So hopefully he'll get to live past 51. Also, yesterday after the podcast, we did cover the shooting yesterday in Sebring, Florida. Then they put out the name of the shooter later that evening. Yesterday's date had the 63 numerology. The name of the shooter was said to be Zephin Xavier. And I've never seen Xavier spelled that way. And I don't know if I've ever seen the name Zephin before either. But you put it together, and 63, just like the date numerology. Again, we had the life lesson number 36 yesterday. Shooting at SunTrust Bank. The name Zephin Xavier also has other overlap with SunTrust Bank. And Zephin goes with Sebring and Killing, the location of where the shooting happened. So, what are the odds? And then yesterday, again, the other top news story was the accused rapist of the woman in a coma at the Hacienda Healthcare Facility. His name was Nathan Sutherland, 63 like the date. Hacienda also going with the date. Again, day after day. News by the numbers. So let me go out to the chat, and I'm going to be waiting for New York to call in. Hopefully he can. He wanted to do a decode yesterday, but ran out of time. He's got something important for us, as always. The other thing I can plug right now is Daily Dose of Gematria on Facebook. Rich is looking for the people who are willing to help spread the word. Got some business cards. I believe you get a pack of 500 business cards, Gematria information, and just got to come here. Daily Dose of Gematria. Send a message. Ask for Rich. Say you're interested in the business cards. He'll get you set up and have a new tool to help spread the word. So let's see what else is going on in the chat. Thanks, Natalie, for posting the call in. Miss Mildred's already got her cards. Awesome. Thanks, Miss Mildred. Miss Mildred's on it. So you guys are having a conversation about how can Vegas profit off the Super Bowl? Remember, the most futures in the NFL for the team to win the Super Bowl were the Rams in the offseason. So if the Rams win, Vegas owes a lot of futures. Rams got the most futures. All right. Well, maybe New York's up to something today. If nobody wants to call in, we can. Oh, we got our man in Arizona. What's going on?
Zach.
Yeah, you're on.
Hey, I'm at work, so I didn't have really time to look at this too much. But that 2 minutes to midnight you were talking about earlier,
Right.
makes me think of the song by Iron Maiden. You ever done any work on that?
Maybe I have. It might have been a moment. Let me see. Let me see if it's on here somewhere. That's a good point.
I'll just read what I see here. It was a protest song about nuclear war. 2 minutes to midnight was written by Adrian Smith and Bruce Dickinson. In September 1953, the clock reached 2 minutes to midnight, the closest it ever got to midnight, when the United States and Soviet Union tested H-bombs within 9 months of one another.
Huh.
And you were just talking about 1953, too. I noticed that was from Power Slave. Power Slave has 53 Gematria. So I thought that was interesting. That's what I thought of when you were talking about 2 minutes to midnight.
Right. Yeah, that song came out in '84 on August 6th.
84, I think it was it August 6th or
Yep.
something?
Yep. Hiroshima.
Was it August 6th or something? I think it was 6.
It was
6 minutes and 4 seconds long, too,
Huh.
I believe.
Huh.
Like that. Or kill.
Yeah. It came out August 6th, '84. Yeah, good observation. I forgot about it.
So something else I was thinking of too. You were talking about a lot of the this global warming stuff. I mean, it's obvious what's going on there with the whole 5G stuff now too. That these things are the whole science thing. We see what's going on when you're awake. This is all just programming for what they're already doing. That we have to dump these chemicals on top of this to stop this global warming. This global warming thing is, we see where it's going, though. It's just obvious, and the 5G stuff, they're already connecting this stuff with infertility rates. And, if someone's within this range of this 5G, they say the sperm will circle. It doesn't go out straight. It just circles. So, the next generation, we're looking at is just going to be completely different. They're already changing us.
Right. Yeah, very true.
This is really what it is, though. But it's just like it's just part of the programming, obviously, for what they're already doing.
Yeah.
On a wide scale.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear from your New York caller, too, man. I agree with pretty much everything he talks about. The only thing I'll disagree with him on, last night I listened to the TFR. Right now, the elite, the New World Order, whatever you want to call them, they don't want to bring light to this. They want this to go away. So I don't see them doing some type of a story like what he was talking about, where they're taking bits and pieces of what people say in this community and then turning it into some news story. I don't see that at this point because it's not a threat. If it became such a wide threat, then yeah, then they maybe put something like that in the news. But for them to do that right now, I welcome. I wish they would, because then it would bring more eyeballs to this research, which more people need to know about. So I just don't see that happening at all. People would get on there and say whatever they want, and nothing's going to happen. They want this to go away, and that's why they deleted 18 of your channels.
Right.
So I'm not worried about that at all at this point, man. Them doing something like that,
Sure. Yeah. They don't want it out there. I agree.
Absolutely. It's obvious they don't want it out there. Didn't they learn? I think they made a mistake by sending the FBI to your house, because what that did was that allowed this to go on further, because then people stepped up and now they're supporting it. So they screwed up there. They screwed up. Sometimes they're smarter than what they think they are. We're not as dumb like in that Talmud as it says. Some of us aren't, obviously. So we all stepped up, and now we keep this thing going. So yeah, I welcome to put something like that out in the news. Let's do it. Put it out there. It'll waken up more of these the sleepwalkers that were around. But I just don't see that happening.
Right.
I don't see that happening at all. They spend too much money to discredit this by, sending all these trolls and all the people out in this community to basically just credit any of this work or this information. There's just too much of that. They're not going to bring more light to it, even though that would be a negative. But in a way it could be positive for this community. It would just bring, more people, more eyeballs to, oh yeah, that crazy guy at work was talking about that, or, well, maybe I need to, look at that a little further. Maybe there is something to it. Why are they reporting it on the news? Doesn't that seem pretty odd? People are dumb, dude, but I would think they're not that dumb.
Right. Yeah, I agree, man.
I don't know, man. That's just my take on the whole thing.
Well, I appreciate it. I agree with you. So.
All right, guy. Well, you're doing great work, man, and talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Have a great day. Take care.
You too. Later.
All right. I see New York's in the room, and he said he's trying to call, but he keeps getting a busy signal. Here, I think this is him.
Is that?
Yeah, that's you. What's up?
Hey, not so much. I finally got. I kept getting busy signals.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, thank God I'm through. I'm glad. You're looking forward to hearing from me.
Absolutely.
I want to clarify something on what the last caller just said. What I was saying last night, as far as the elites wanting your message to go away, I was saying that their MO is to portray their opponents as being violent. And I gave an example of the Iranian woman who she had legitimate complaints about YouTube's policy of shutting down alternative media. As so they had a false flag where supposedly she started shooting up Google headquarters, which was just an obvious lame false flag. And also I gave the example of Comet Pizza, where they're taking a legitimate issue, which is child trafficking and pedophilia by the elites, and they had a false flag to make it sound like whoever is against child trafficking and pedophilia by the elites is actually violent, because he's actually promoting violence. They're saying here's this nutcase who listens to conspiracy theories about pedophilia and child trafficking, and then he's motivated to go shoot up Comet Pizza. The whole thing is to make their opponents appear violent
and crazy,
and
right? Right, I get that.
What's that?
I get that. Yeah, make them appear violent and crazy. I get it.
Yeah, but I'll try to clarify. The last caller didn't understand what I was saying. I was saying that if...
No, I think he understood what you're saying. He's just saying they're not going to put it out there because they don't even want people to hear about it.
Yeah, but I'll say, but if they have somebody, just say, like I gave an example, shooting up a Jewish daycare center and they'll say, oh, he killed 2 4-year-olds, that's such a horrendous crime, and say, well, he was motivated by listening to this guy, Zach Hubbard, who promotes violence on his show. Every time you hear about Gematria, that's what you'll think of. I don't think you could recover from a false flag like that. I think portraying yourself as violent is playing into their hands. They want to portray their opponents as violent. That's what I was saying.
Sure. No, I get your point.
Oh yeah. Thanks. Thanks for letting me. What I was going to talk about last night is about there's some increasing synchronicity with the English soccer and American sports. And there's an incident in English soccer that clearly was predictive programming for the Rams New England Super Bowl. Also, it should be known that a lot of owners of the top English soccer teams are American. They own also American sports teams. For example, Liverpool, one of the biggest teams in England in the world, they're owned by the Boston Red Sox owners. Manchester United is owned by the Glazers, who own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Arsenal, again, a huge club, mega club, millions of supporters around the world. They're owned by Sam Kroenke. Sam Kroenke owns the Rams, and he's married into the Walmart family. So, the incident that happened in England, completely staged, it happened on January 10th. This was well over a week before the AFC and NFC finals. And they used the term, they labeled it Spygate. And Spygate threw up a red flag for me because that's such an American term. And it was just weird to hear it in a British soccer setting. And the teams involved in Spygate were Leeds United and Derby County. Derby was spelled like Derby, D-E-R-B-Y. Now these two teams, just to clarify, they're not in the Premier League, but they're in the league below the Premier League. A difference in world soccer and American sports is that in the top league, the bottom 3 get relegated at the end of the season, and the league below their top teams replace those. So these teams are in the lower league, below the Premier League, but they're vying to be promoted to the Premier League. So what happened there was that the Leeds United were set to host Derby County in an important game. An individual later accepted by Leeds United as a member of their staff was caught with a pair of binoculars and a set of wire cutters at a Derby County practice session on January 10th. That's the day before the actual game, January 11th. This incident was labeled Spygate by the British media. This reminded me of the original Spygate, which was in 2002 at Super Bowl 36, when the New England Patriots, they were said to have secretly filmed the St. Louis Rams practice session. So the English soccer team, who was spied upon, Derby County, has as its emblem and logo a ram. And their nickname is the Rams. So if you look up Derby County Football Club, you'll see the Ram logo, and their nickname is the Rams. So the Rams were spied upon in Spygate in England in 2019, just as the Rams were spied upon before Super Bowl 36 in 2002. And Super Bowl 36 featured the Rams and the Patriots. Another thing, although Leeds United did the theatrical spying, their colors are blue and yellow, like the LA Rams. Derby County Football Club, they circulated a photograph of the supposed perpetrator, who's really an actor, calmly seated in the back of a blue and yellow police van. Now, Leeds United, they're very significant. In the 1970s, they were like the top dog of English soccer. They were like the New York Yankees of English soccer in the 70s, so they have this illustrious history. Leeds United, interestingly, their minority shareholder is the San Francisco 49ers, who own 10% share of Leeds United. The city of Leeds is in the very historical Yorkshire County. That's Yorkshire, as in the British Royal House of York. Think of the origins of modern Freemasonry in England, York, right? I said that the San Francisco 49ers own 10% of Leeds United. But who owns the San Francisco 49ers? The York family.
Right.
You can't make this stuff up.
Right.
John York and Denise DiBartolo York are co-owners and co-chairman. Jed York is the CEO. And in Gematria, what is the value of York right? 49.
Perfect.
All a coincidence, sure. Another interesting fact is that at the moment, Leeds United franchise is 99 years old. This is the 99th NFL season. They will turn 100 on October 17th this year, which is written 1017, which is in numerology the same as 117. Leeds United's nickname is the Whites, which is 117. Cheek is 117 in Jewish Gematria. England is 117 in Jewish Gematria. Think of New England as well as England, the country. The Rams head coach during the first Spygate was Mike Martz. Martz equals 711 in Jewish Gematria. Now, I mentioned San Francisco, since Leeds United is owned by the San Francisco 49ers, or part owned. San Francisco Mayor London Breed assumed office on 711. So 711 is stamped on July 11th. She assumed office. This is more of a San Francisco connection to Gematria. Also, in your podcast yesterday, you mentioned that Argentina seems to be a focal point in the news, especially as far as soccer deaths are related. There's a young Argentine player who they said disappeared in a plane crash. His name is Emiliano Sala. And the same day yesterday, a former Argentine soccer player, Pedro Manfredini, died at age 83. Well, the head coach / manager of Leeds United, who's assuming responsibility for the spying, he said, yeah, I ordered the spying. Well, he's from Argentina, so there's more Argentina in the news, regarding this sort of thing. And his name is Marcelo Bielsa. You noted in your blog, that in your podcast, that about Emiliano Sala's quote last goodbye message, and you showed how last goodbye in Gematria matched up with Argentina. They're both 44 and 55.
Right.
Well, also in the same two ciphers, which is reduced and reverse reduction, 44 answers, as well as last goodbye and Argentina, Belichick is 44 and 55. Mike Martz is 44 and 55. LA Rams is 44. Darby County, that's the team nicknamed the Rams, who were spied on, is 55. Also, the Argentine former player Manfredo Manfredini, he died at 83 years old. We know that 83 is a football number. The Leeds United head coach / manager is Marcelo Bielsa. His name is 83. Bill Belichick is 83. So he's kind of the Bill Belichick of English soccer at this point. And the Rams franchise is 83 years old this year. Then this is one last thing on number 45 is significant to this synchronicity. And you brought up the 45 in relation to the 8/11 Golden Gate Bridge possible issue. And plus, this also Donald Trump. He's a 45th president. So 45 seems to be a major number. And the symbol of York, the House of York in Yorkshire, is a white rose, which has very deep esoteric meaning. But white rose equals 45. Derbyshire is 45. Bill Belichick, 45, all in septenary. Patriot is 45. Leeds is 45. But Golden Gate is 45 and 45, reverse, forward and reverse. York Rose. Now, Golden Gate is significant because 49ers own 10% of Leeds United, the San Francisco 49ers. York, and they're owned by the York family. York Rose is 45 and 45. Jared Goff is 45 and 45. New England is 45 and 45. The Whites, the nickname of Leeds United, is 45 and 45. London Breed, interestingly, I think of her first name London. There's another connection to England again. Synchronicity with England. Well, London Breed is 54 and 54. So, yeah, I think increasingly you'll start to see you'll see some synchronicity between English soccer, some of the narratives going on there, and American sports. That's what I'm...
There was something big the other year with, I'm trying to remember the team that got the unprecedented win the other year in the UK, and I forget, they were like mailing jerseys with one of the NFL teams that went to the Super Bowl. Story's escaping me right now. But
Leicester City.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think about what NFL team they had the riddle going with. But yeah, we've seen this before.
Well, I didn't know about that synchronicity. There were 5,000 to 1 odds to win the Premier League.
Yeah, and there was some jersey exchange between them and an NFL team. So I'd have to go back and look at all that.
Also, their owner just died. Remember the helicopter crash that recently happened last year?
Right.
Yeah, he was the owner of Leicester City. He's the one who died in the helicopter crash.
Right, and that was connected to the World Cup and the Thailand cave thing, and yep.
Yeah, also, Thailand's in the news as well for some reason. The recent terrorist attack in Nairobi, Kenya, on the hotel by Al-Shabaab. That hotel is owned by it's a Thai chain. It's owned by people from Thailand. So with that and the cave thing and the owner dying, Thailand for some reason is also in the news for some reason.
Huh.
And Tiger Woods is half Thai. That's another. So maybe I look at Tiger Woods.
Yeah. Good observations.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. There's the synchronicity English soccer and
American football. Yeah, there's definitely something going on. You're right on.
Yeah, they're spotting the Rams, so I think that was pretty blatant, obviously.
Yeah, great work as always, man. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
All right, you have a good day.
Take it easy.
All right, yeah, you too. Take care. All right, Truth Seeker. I think that's a good show for today. Be back tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow it's going to be the last day of doing the podcast at this time. And starting next week, it's going to start in the evening time. So it'll start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern, next Monday. So tomorrow, the last day of the 1 o'clock time. Next week, the new time slot. So I think we might get more involvement, too, with it being in the evening. All right, you guys, for all the sports fans, I'll be right back with the daily basketball. Meant to get that out earlier, but I've had my mom on the phone all morning, so running behind schedule. Appreciate all of you, and You're welcome. And of course, thank all of you too. So have a great day. See you tomorrow. Take care, Truth.